Imagine a coalition of 6 male lions ruling a vast territory in South Africa. They didn't want to leave heirs. They wanted to leave fear. And for 7 years, they did. These lions, known as the Birmingham Boys, took the idea of a predator to the extreme. They didn't just defeat rivals, they destroyed them. And often, they devoured them. Even cubs, even lionesses who dared to resist. During their 7-year reign in the Sabi Sands Reserve, they weren't just looking to reproduce, they even ignored females in heat, obsessed with eliminating any threat. On many days there was no mating, only patrolling, conflict, and blood. This behavioral inversion revealed a shocking truth. Reproduction versus aggression is a delicate balance when power becomes the only goal. The story of the Birmingham Boys goes beyond violence among lions. It exposes territoriality as a weapon of destruction, and holds up an uncomfortable mirror to how disunity and internal conflicts can destroy even the most feared. They left a legacy stained with fear but also with transformation, and that's what you'll understand throughout this video. Get ready to experience each phase of this empire, from its brutal rise to its slow, silent fall. A true story, recorded by nature, where strength isn't enough, and savagery hides strategies few can imagine. Welcome to the story of the Birmingham Boys, the most violent lions to ever walk the African savanna. In the heart of the Sabi Sands Reserve, in South Africa, a coalition of 5 lions emerged in 2014 with behavior that defied even the most brutal standards of the wild. Known as the Birmingham Coalition, they didn't just claim territory, they ushered in an era of fear. Their dominance was marked by war strategies, violence among lions, and a level of wickedness rarely seen among large predators. They didn't just kill, they ate their rivals. The savanna became a stage for extreme acts. The killing of cubs was recurrent, coldly executed as part of the takeover of territory. Defeated male lions were often devoured, not as food but as symbols of absolute domination. This behavior, combined with cannibalism, challenged the traditional understanding of hierarchy and disputes among lions. They weren't just looking to rule, they were looking to erase legacies. When faced with resistant lionesses, the Birmingham Boys didn't back down or negotiate. Those who didn't submit were killed or torn apart. The remains were scattered as gruesome warnings, a clear message about the price of the lioness's resistance. In these encounters, territoriality was imposed with ferocity. The traditional pattern of conquest and reproduction seemed to have been replaced by a raw logic of intimidation. Even during mating periods, the coalition's focus wasn't on reproduction, but on control. Instead of the up to 50 daily copulations common among dominant males, the Birmingham Boys barely approached 10. Some didn't mate at all. This data points to an inversion of reproductive behavior in favor of aggression. What motivated them after all, if not their biological legacy? The members of the Birmingham Coalition carried names that would become feared throughout the region. Blonde, also called Juice, Clara, Nenha, Tooth, Smoke, Scraper. Each of them carried not only strength but a sharp instinct for domination, united by an unusual goal among lions to instill terror. From the beginning, they showed they were willing to go beyond the natural limits of violence among lions. Their rise was marked not only by deaths, but by even more shocking behavior. Among big cats, cannibalism is a rare phenomenon, usually reserved for extreme situations. But with the Birmingham Boys, it became a strategic practice. Defeated rivals weren't just driven away, they were consumed. Cubs, even from their own lineage, were killed and, in some cases, devoured. The act served not only as the elimination of threats, but as a cruel reminder of who dominated that territory. This anomalous behavior, so far removed from the typical biology of lions in South Africa, challenged experts. It was as if, for this coalition, the idea of continuity through reproduction was secondary. The focus seemed to be on the annihilation of any trace of opposition. Instead of preserving the future of their lineage, they chose to erase the present of everyone around them. It was the legacy of wickedness, written with claws and teeth. Even when faced with opportunities for growth, the Birmingham Boys chose confrontation. Their own peers, at times, were not safe. Signs of disunity and internal conflicts emerged, with silent disputes eroding the structure of the coalition. Still, the group remained feared. After all, fear was their greatest weapon, and it was always present, like a shadow hanging over the savanna. But even shadows can break. While other coalitions earned the respect of the females with displays of strength and protection, the Birmingham male lions took a radically different approach. Instead of courting, they attacked. When they encountered resistant lionesses, They didn't try to persuade them to join the group. Instead, they killed and devoured those who challenged their dominance. It was a shock tactic, brutal, but effective in establishing total control. The savannas of the Sabi Sands Reserve began to accumulate female carcasses, victims of their refusal to submit. The Birmingham lions' presence was preceded by silence and followed by the killing of cubs, roars, and blood. This behavior wasn't just aggressive, it was a warning, a grim message left in the form of remains. Their territory was marked by borders drawn with fear. For animal behavior experts, this reversal in how they treated females was alarming. Most coalitions depended on lionesses to continue the group and maintain stability. But with the Birmingham lions, reproduction seemed to have been put on hold for intimidation. The mutilated bodies left behind sent a powerful message. The lioness's resistance would not be tolerated. It was a policy of submit or die. This pattern raises a disturbing question about the limits of nature. To what extent can power distort instinct? The Birmingham lions' actions created an atmosphere of fear that canceled out the typical behavior of the groups. Even in nearby areas, the lionesses' behavior changed. They avoided contact, kept their distance. But if fear worked as a strategy, where would it lead a coalition that hadn't yet shown its peak of cruelty? In the midst of the savannah's heat, when the mating winds swept across the fields of South Africa, many expected to see the Birmingham coalition dedicate themselves to reproduction. But what was seen was something totally out of the ordinary. While the females approached, clearly receptive, the males barely reacted. The sexual instinct was suppressed by a deeper desire, that of violence among lions. The thirst for conflict seemed to consume any impulse for continuity. Field data indicates atypical behavior. While dominant lions usually mate up to 50 times a day, the Birmingham lions recorded less than 10 matings. In some periods, none. This number alone revealed something disturbing. They weren't there to create life but to enforce domination. Instead of protecting a genetic legacy, they protected a reign of fear. This obsession with war caused them to frequently cross the territories of rival coalitions. Instead of consolidating their own ranks, they looked for weaknesses in neighboring groups, craving battles. When there were no enemies, they created internal tensions or attacked resistant lionesses as a way to reaffirm their power. It was as if the cycle of life had been interrupted, replaced by a cycle of perpetual war. The savannah was no longer a place of continuity, but of constant vigilance. Over the years, this behavior began to take its toll. The absence of significant offspring threatened the survival of the coalition itself. But still, the Birmingham lions seemed more interested in eliminating than creating. Deep down, something was beginning to change. But like every mutation, it would come with pain, ruptures, and perhaps more internal disunity and conflict than they could control. The empire built with claws and teeth began to crumble silently. Years after the height of their domination, the Birmingham coalition began to face something no external enemy had caused: disunity and internal conflicts. Scraper, one of the most aggressive members, disappeared without a trace. His absence raised suspicions. Had he been ambushed by rivals, or eliminated by his own brothers? A short time later, the decay took on new faces. Smoke was found dead under unclear circumstances, and Juice, another feared leader, succumbed soon after. The successive losses opened deep cracks in the group. Those who remained held the territory, but they no longer had the same power as before. The sound of their roars echoed weaker over the Sabi Sands Reserve, like an echo of a dark past. Yet, even weakened, the survivors continued to leave their mark. Violence among lions remained a part of daily life, but now a shadow fell over the throne. How much longer would this reign of fear last? The fall of key members also raised a question about the legacy of the Birmingham lions. Was it possible to maintain the terror without unity? Or was the very essence of the group disintegrating? With fewer members, more territory, and countless threats around them, the last of the coalition seemed forced to rethink their path. Survival would require not only strength but adaptation. And in a landscape marked by betrayals, battles, and losses, something unexpected began to emerge. A silent twist, almost imperceptible, but one that would forever change the trajectory of the lions of South Africa. With years of brutality fading into the past, the last members of the Birmingham coalition started to act differently. Instead of only wanting blood and territory, they started to care about something they used to ignore: having cubs. A new instinct seemed to come out, calmer but strategic. And with that, a new generation of cubs was born under their care. marking a turning point in the coalition's history. One group of lionesses had 12 cubs in just 1 month, protected by the Birmingham lions. This was very different from earlier years when cubs were often killed and the lionesses were ignored. It was like, for the first time, the future was more important than fear. Even so, the lionesses were still strong. Many still remembered what they had lost. This new phase didn't erase the past cruelty. There was tension between wanting to protect and the habit of destroying. Violent instincts were still there, especially among the remaining male lions. Their internal fights threatened the fragile peace they had found. Territory was still a source of tension, but now it was mixed with the challenge of protecting the cubs. The end of the coalition, when it came, wasn't a big battle. It was a quiet change, with small fights and disappearances. But what remained was more than scars. It was a legacy, a clear warning that the balance between having cubs and being aggressive decides the future of any group. And so, the name Birmingham became a symbol of power, horror, and change. They conquered land with claws and teeth. They made the savannah a place of fear. But what the Birmingham lions really left us was a question. What's more important for a lion? Having children or causing fear? Power that isn't shared always has a cost. What do you think? Do you think being strong is all that matters for survival? Or do you think the strength of the lionesses, their bonds, and protecting their cubs is what makes a true leader? Tell us in the comments what impressed you most about this story, and what lesson you learned from this wild journey. If this story moved you, imagine what's still to come. This channel will show you other true stories, powerful and often hidden by time and nature. So, subscribe now and click the bell because there's much more coming soon. And the next episode might be even more surprising.